I'll start over. Welcome board members and audience at home attending via the webinar to the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board meeting. Meeting of the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board are open to the public and comply with the Bagley-Keeney Open Meeting Act. This act allows for public comment on all agenda items. Audience members may address the board following each agenda item. All speakers from the audience are limited to 3 minutes. Are there any members of the audience that require accommodations in order to participate in this meeting? Please use the raise hand feature on the Zoom application or send a message to Industrial Hemp if you have accommodations to participate in this meeting. We will begin by conducting roll call for board members. When called upon, please provide a brief introduction for the audience participating on this webinar. Van Butzik,
Yes, I'm here.
thank you. Lisa Herbert,
Good morning, I'm here.
good morning, Lisa. Jack Norton,
Yes, I'm here. Jack Norton. I'm a hemp farmer in Alameda, Contra Costa, and San Joaquin counties.
thank you, Jack. Rob Porcella,
Yeah, this is Rob Porcella. I'm a hemp farmer here in Fresno County and also a finished products manufacturer of CBD products.
thank you, Rob. Vanessa Ramirez,
Morning, I'm here. Vanessa Ramirez, hemp farmer, Ventura County.
thank you. David Robinson. Okay. Richard Sawyer, that's me, retired horticulture instructor and current pest control advisor. Lucas Wilson,
I'm here, hemp farmer, Butte, etc.
thank you, Lucas. Each board member should have received an email with all the handouts for today's meeting. Copy the agenda and all handouts are available at the I Have Meeting Information webpage, and handouts will be brought up via the webinar as they are discussed. The topics of discussion for this meeting are brief update on state plan, rulemaking, and other program activities. Review the list of approved cultivars and procedures and methodology to amend the list of approved cultivars. Are there any requests for corrections or changes to the agenda order? Okay. As a reminder, the program asks that all board members check the current board member list posted on the CDFA Industrial Hemp webpage for any needed corrections. Okay, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Yeah. Hey, Richard. Hopefully you all can hear me. Appreciate that. I do have just one quick note before we get started, as far as just some follow-up actions to the previous meeting, just to make sure everybody's clear. So the previous board meeting, there was conversation about Senate Bill 292 and Assembly Bill 45. So I did want to follow up and let the board know that the board approved letter regarding Senate Bill 292 was signed by Richard, by the board chair, and provided to the secretary along with the board's motion regarding Assembly Bill 45. Since that meeting, both bills, SB 292 and AB 45, have passed both houses of the legislature and have been signed into law. SB 292 was signed by the governor on October 4th and will take effect on January 1st, 2022. AB 45 was signed on October 6th and took effect immediately. So staff will be updating our frequently asked questions on our website, and we'll update the necessary food and ag code extracts with the changes to Senate Bill 292 by the time it takes effect. Beyond this, staff are currently reviewing the bills and communicating with our partner agencies to determine any impacts, and they will be providing updates as they are available. So I just wanted to provide that quick update before we move into the agenda. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. During the board meeting, all board members will not be muted by the program to allow for full participation. To minimize background noise, please make sure to personally mute yourself during the meeting when you are not talking. There are no breaks scheduled on the agenda, but we will take a break approximately every hour as needed or requested. A quick note on public comments. We will have opportunities for public comments throughout the meeting, as well as an opportunity for general comments at the end. For comments during an agenda item or pending board motion, please keep comments pertinent to the item or motion. At the end of the meeting, we will have opportunity for additional comments, both related to the meeting and for items not on the agenda. We request all individuals who would like to comment on an agenda item to use the raise hand feature in Zoom. We also request for each speaker to state their name and affiliation before commenting. Due to the large number of attendees, we will be limiting all commentators to a maximum of 3 minutes per agenda item. Unless there are follow-up questions from the board, we will be timing all commentators and will try to provide warning prior to the time limit ending. Thank you for your consideration as we try to provide everyone with an opportunity to comment during the proceedings. If you have any questions for CDFA regarding industrial hemp and the industrial hemp program, please direct your questions to CDFA staff. You may contact them by emailing or calling 916-654-0435. Okay, brief update on state plan, rulemaking, and other program activities will be led by Locke Fan.
Richard, this is Mark McLaughlin. Can I make a comment?
Sure, Mark.
Sure. I want to introduce myself to you all. I know I've been here almost 7 months now. I'm the director of plant health. So I want to introduce myself to you and your board. I know you're in good hands here with Josh, Natalie, and Locke. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'll leave my contact information in the chat, but I just want to meet you all and introduce myself, and I'll participating in future meetings. So thank you, Richard.
And thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Hi, Richard, this is Lafta. Can I go ahead and start?
Sure.
Richard? Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Lafta. I'm an environmental scientist with CDFA's Industrial Hemp Program, and I'm here to provide a brief update on the state plan, rulemaking, and other program activities. So we'll go ahead and first start with the state plan update. As to the timeline of the state plan, CDFA submitted a state plan that was in compliance with the USDA's interim final rules on September 18, 2020. Shortly after, USDA published their final rule, and that took effect on March 22nd, 2021. CDFA is now currently in communication with USDA so that we could revise the state plan so that it would be in accordance with the federal final rule. And we actually anticipate to submit a revised plan to USDA for review and approval by the end of this year. CDFA will notify all stakeholders via the electronic listserv once the plan has been submitted, and it will also be posted on the program's website, similar to what we have right now with the previous proposed state plan. And we wanted to note that any changes to the regulations that require to implement the state plan, those changes will need to be proposed via regular rulemaking. As for the rulemaking update, since the previous meeting, there is an update on sections 4901 and 49.2, which is in regards to the registration and criminal history report. That has been now been approved by the Office of Administrative Law, and it took effect on September 21st, 2021. Meanwhile, the amendments to sections 4940, 4944, and 4946 were proposed through regular rulemaking, and that was proposed on September 24th, 2021, and the public comments period will close on November 8th, 2021. Once more, these regulations pertain to the extension of the harvest timeframe from 15 calendar days to 30 calendar days, along with the corresponding notification timeframe. As for future rulemaking, on May 19th, 2021, the Industrial Hemp Advisory Board recommended to increase the registration fee from $900 to $2,000 per registration. Changing in this fee would require amendment to Section 4900 via the regular rulemaking process. So this recommendation is still currently under review by CDFA. As for other program activities, as for registration as of October 13, 2021, there are 265 registrants, of which 255 are growers and 9 breeders. There are 385 registered sites with little more than 5,000 acres in 29 counties. The county with the most registrants at this time is San Bernardino at 71 registrants, while Riverside County has the most registered acres at 1,058 acres. As for the other additional activities for the program, for applying for the board vacancy, that application period has closed as of September 30th, 2021. Right now, we are routing the letter of interest as well as the resumes and other additional documentations that the applicants may have provided to the secretary for her selection. The program continues to review the laboratory application, and since October 13th, the program received 28 laboratory applications, in which 16 laboratories have been approved, while 12 laboratories are still pending approval. For those that are pending approval, some are new applications that we have just recently received, while others are we are still waiting for additional information or revised documents from those laboratories. And of course, the program remains to fill some vacant positions that we have, as well as updates the forms and FAQs as what Josh has previously presented on the changes in the laws as well as the regulations. So that is the brief update. Any questions?
Thank you, Locke. Do we have any further discussion or questions from the board regarding this agenda item?
Yeah, this is Rob Porchella. I had a couple questions just in regard to the rules and regulations. I feel like at these meetings we come in here and we're kind of on our heels waiting for what the regulations are, what we're going to hear, the changes that are made. And I feel that this board is sort of here to advise on those. And I'd love to see a little more participation on the part of the board. And I'd love to see us form a committee maybe that participated in looking at these rules and regs, and giving the advice based on the industry expertise that we all have, and that I feel that we can contribute. And I'd like to at some point later in the meeting maybe make a motion that would allow us to have that opportunity, so that when rules and regs are being considered, we have a little bit more of a voice and we can stay ahead of it, instead of, like I said, I feel as if we're on our heels every time when these things come out. And I'd like to just be a little more proactive with it. So that's kind of my comment as far as the rules and regulations are concerned. And I've definitely had a number of concerns. I have people contacting me now about, the state plan, hemp farmers that are trying to plan and, get their grow operations going, seeking federal funding due to the fact that we have no state plan in place yet. They're being told that funding is not available. And, there's been a number of hangups on this state plan. It's been quite a while that it's taken to get this submitted. I know it's gone back and forth a few times, but I think if we had a little more accountability and that, these committees could be actively participating with the members of CDFA, that we could accomplish a little bit more as this board. And I just wanted to say that. And also I want to thank Mark McLaughlin for showing up to this meeting. That's very important. We love to have your support, Mark. Thank you for introducing yourself. And I'd love for you to come down and Fresno County sometime if you're in the area. I'd love for you to take a tour of my hemp nursery and maybe take a look at we've just now harvested, but maybe come next year when we get a few hundred acres planted again, come take a look at what we're doing down here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Hey, Richard, I'd like to just make a couple of quick comments based off of what Rob was saying, and I appreciate your thoughts and your comments there, Rob. So the changes that CDFA is looking at making in order to gain federal compliance and make some further amendments to the regulation, what we're working on right now, again, we are in active discussions with USDA to ensure that we're compliant with the final rules. And so any changes that we make right now are changes that are either changes that are required to comply with the final rule, where CDFA does not have discretion, or changes that are required to comply with changes to state law, which again, we don't have discretion. We are also looking at making some kind of administrative structural changes just to make the regulation clearer and easier to follow. But at this point, none of the changes that we're looking at making are actually substantial changes to the way that the program is being currently administered. And so we have had discussions with the board in the past on a lot of those things. We did have a number of discussions with the board on sampling and testing procedures, and we incorporated those board recommendations into the regulation that we have today. However, the industry continues to change, and we do appreciate that we do need to continue to discuss these items. And that's part of the discussion on the next agenda item, is opening up one of those regulations and discussing with the board potential changes that will better fit and better serve the industry. So that it definitely is on the horizon. That's something that we appreciate. And we don't need a board motion. If you'd like to make a board motion, you can. We don't need a board motion to move forward with that. That is still part of the plan, is to engage the board and look at what we have and see where we have discretion, where we can get the board's feedback and input to continue to refine these regulations and make them work for everyone. But I did want to just give you a quick update on that, because I just want to make sure that we're clear that the changes that are going to be proposed at this point would be either what's required by USDA, or again, we would not have discretion. We want to ensure that the state plan is approved as required under California law, or changes that are being made on kind of the administrative side of things and the clarity side of things, just to make sure that the regulation is clear and easy to follow, and get that clarity in what's already being done out in the field. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
And that clarity is definitely needed, because I know for a fact that there is a great level of a lack of understanding of sampling procedures, timing of sampling. Is it 30 days? Is it 20? Is it 12? And I think there's definitely a level of confusion that's trickling down through the counties. And I've heard that from a number of different growers as well. So we do need that kind of clarification, so that all growers are playing on a level playing field, not some different field because they're in a different county that's still making an interpretation based on an old rule. And I know these rules are changing quickly, and so it is difficult for people to stay abreast of what the latest is, but that clarification is definitely needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Josh and Rob. And I agree with you there. Changes are coming. Are there any further discussions or questions from the board regarding this agenda item?
Yeah, Jack Norton here. I'd just like to say that I second what Rob says, and notwithstanding Josh's great explanation that the changes being made right now are non-discretionary, when it comes time, and hopefully it doesn't take too long for us to consider discretionary changes. I'd like that the board be active and not passive or reactive to changes that are being made by CDFA themselves, and that we have an active role in advising.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have any other board members that would like to say anything regarding this agenda item?
Richard, I guess quickly, one more thing. I see that we, in the report that Locke gave, we're anticipating having the rules back, the plan back, excuse me, before the end of the year. Is there any more detail on that? Do you know if it should be coming in 30 days or by the end of the year is the best kind of timeframe we're going to get?
So this is Josh. I'll go ahead and address that. I'll say right now we've continued to work with USDA on this throughout the year since they first published the final rule, and actually even before. But we are in active communication with USDA informally to try to ensure that whatever we submit formally is going to be able to be approved and be able to move forward quickly, so that way we can move forward with implementation. So no, we don't have any more specific timelines at this point, other than we are very actively working with USDA. I'll go ahead and say that we were in communication with them today already on the state plan, and continue to work with them informally on what's required and any questions or concerns. We're fortunate to lean on their experience working with other states in areas that may show where there may be some compliance issues where other states have run into trouble. And so we've been able to work with them actively. But yeah, no, we don't have a firm timeline on the approval process. The formal process in federal reg is that when we submit, they have 60 days to approve, but they definitely want to work with us. And so we've been actively working with them.
Okay, great. I guess so CDFA is making non-discretionary changes to the plan at the moment, but does that preclude us from getting started on having the conversation about discretionary changes? One thing that, as from a farmer's perspective, this year and the season before, a lot of we were down to the wire on getting exactly our plan, our rules for the year on how testing and how our season of hemp growing was going to work. And if we could get started a little sooner rather than later, that'll give us more time to adjust and prepare from a farmer's perspective. Farmers are right now planning what they're going to do next year in the field, and the less time we have to plan, the worse our outcomes become.
Yeah, I can answer that question briefly, which is there's nothing that precludes the board from having those conversations now. Again, we're not really planning on making any changes to the way the program is currently being administered. So if there are thoughts or ideas or areas that are not well addressed or that the board would like to explore further, the board certainly can. And so if you have something specific that you would like to discuss and that we would like to move forward on, that'd be a great idea. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. But the proper way to do that would be to suggest it at the suggestion for agenda items at the end of the meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you, Josh and Jack. Do we have any other board members that would like?
Yes, this is Vanessa. I have raised my hand and just want to second what Jack Horton is saying, and the answer of the fact that we have to put in the agenda. I think we definitely will be working on that, because yes, we definitely need to have hard deadlines for the plan, and as well, to getting more involved in the implementation of the AB 45 or the implementation of some of the other items. So yeah, I second Jack Horton and Rob Porcella's comments.
Thank you, Vanessa. Do we have any other board members that would like to say anything regarding this agenda item?
Yeah, this is Rob Porcella again. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a squeaky wheel here, but I was just thinking back on the slides, and there was something mentioned about the budget, and or no, it wasn't about the budget, but it was about the registration fee. And I was one of the members that voted no against the increase to $2,000 on the registration fee. And I know, again, I'm very thankful to Lisa and gosh, I forget who else did the analysis, because they did a really good job of analyzing what all we're trying to cover here, because there's a huge debt that needs to be serviced. And again, I think this is something that we should be looking at every meeting, is our budget and our deficit. And if it's us having a small committee that does that and presents it, I think that would be something that would be very beneficial. My take on the budget and the deficit problem is that we need to move towards a government funded solution to this. California has a very large surplus, and there's a lot of money going a lot of different places, and the burden has been placed directly on the shoulders of the farmer to service the debt on this program. It was I don't want to call it poorly managed or run out or rolled out rather, but the amount of money that was run up was due to a lot of inefficiencies. It's a new program. I understand that putting this kind of thing together is somewhat a work in progress, and therefore a lot of inefficiencies were there, and all those expenses are now trying to be serviced through registration fees, and it's putting it on the shoulders of the farmer. It is not compelling farmers to want to grow hemp in this state, and that's what we're here to do, is try to make growing hemp something that farmers want to do here in California. And growing hemp is there is a inherent risk that is associated with this crop due to a THC threshold, that there is no getting around that this is a great risk, along with all the other things that can go wrong in farming. This $2,000 registration fee, I think, is something we need to revisit. I think we need to think outside of the box. I think after talking to local Fresno County ag workers, the amount of time that they spend on the verification process, we've brought this up. This is something that should be looked into. There should be some kind of a portal where we don't have to, every county member doesn't have to re-verify the same genetic every time from the same supplier. They can just go, look quickly, see that it's been confirmed, and then move on, because they've, I've heard directly from these people at Fresno County Ag that they spend 70% of their time running around in circles, calling labs and doing these re-verifications. There's a lot of streamlining that can be done in this program, I think. And I think if we keep our finger on the pulse of the budget and the deficit, we're going to have to continue to work to make these improvements. And then ultimately, we need to ask for that money for this program. There is, this should not be placed on the shoulders of the farmers through an overinflated registration fee that, just makes it that much more difficult to enter into this space. So I think the budget, and I think a budget and deficit committee that's constantly bringing this to our attention at every meeting, giving updates, and then ultimately, like I said, making a push to ask for this debt to be serviced so that we can wipe that slate clean and move forward with a fresh start with this program, I think would be something extraordinarily beneficial, and something that, I would like to see us accomplish. So that's all I have to say on that.
Well, thank you, Rob. Do we have any other board members that would like to say anything on this agenda item? Okay, moving on. We'll review the list of approved cultivars.
Richard,
yes,
the public comments.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Any public comments on, please?
Hey, Richard. We do have a few public comments. The first one is going to be from Justin Eve. Justin Eve, you've been asked to unmute. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me okay?
I could hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard, and the rest of the board. And Mark McLaughlin, great to have you along. So hopefully you can have a appear into the window here of how things are progressing in this emerging industry. I work with the Hemp Farmers Guild. We've been doing research about advocacy and policy and aligning ourselves within the industry. And one question, and maybe this is for Josh Crest, if you could clarify a few things, just 3 quick things on this specific agenda item. The first thing is, if you could provide a copy of the state plan that was submitted, or currently the status in which it's in. If you could provide a copy to us, we'd like to look through that. I'm not sure if that could be made available to the public or to us. Josh, I don't know if you could answer that briefly, or if I could just keep going.
Why don't you go ahead and go through your questions, Justin, and we'll come back.
Okay, great. And then the second point of clarity that we were wondering was, if other states have gotten their state plans approved with the USDA for hemp, and if so, what those states are or who they are, and if we could obtain copies of that. And then my third point I'd like to make, that we've been doing research on and found out that other agriculture boards, that the way they operate is that every decision that's made runs through those boards first before it's then actually internally decided on. And from our understanding with the Hemp Farmers Guild is that we've found out that a committee can be formed right now on this agenda item. Any of the board members can motion, and they can say, I'd like to form a committee on, and then for this item, I believe it was the state plan, a working group or a committee to deal with the state plan until it's approved. I do believe that is correct. So Josh, if you could just clarify for the Hemp Farmers Guild and for the board here, if those points are correct, and let me know if you need me to answer any questions up here. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Justin. I can answer those questions really quickly just for some clarification on this agenda item. So first off, the copy of the originally submitted state plan from California is posted on our website. I'm not sure exactly where the link is, but if you reach out to staff, it can provide you with a link to that. It is posted, and that notification was sent out when it was submitted, and the link to it was posted then. As far as the draft plan that's under discussion with USDA, again, that's a working document that we are working with USDA to ensure compliance with the final rule. So no, we do not have a version of that is readily available. Again, it is still in a draft form, but that's something that's actively being worked on. When we do formally submit to USDA, it will be published just as we did the first time. Regarding other states' state plans, so USDA publishes all approved state plans on their website. Again, I don't have the link readily accessible, but if you reach out to staff, they can assist you with finding those. Every single state and tribe that has an approved state plan, a link to the plan is on USDA's website currently. And then as far as board actions and how other boards are run, every board is certainly a little bit different here at CDFA. We've got a huge range of different boards and different jurisdictions from within which they work. But yes, this board can make a motion, choose to set up a work group or a committee to discuss or investigate any item. And this board has created a number of different work groups over the years to work with CDFA and to investigate different issues. And so that is certainly something that can be continued to be discussed and worked on. And if the board has any questions about forming a work group or a committee and what that looks like and the rules around it, they can feel free to ask either now, or if they would like to have that conversation later on in the meeting about future meeting agenda items, we can have that conversation then.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Justin. Do we have any more public comments?
We do have a public comment from Wayne Richmond. Wayne, you've been muted. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, board members. Thank you all for giving of your precious time to be here. Mark, if you're still listening, happy to have you here finally. There's a lot to know and a lot to communicate with you, and I hope to do so here in the coming weeks. The comments, I support most of the comments that I've heard this morning. I like where this the farmers on the committee are actually being the ones who are being heard and being more proactive. So welcome to the new farmers on the board, and thank you, Rob, for your leadership. Good questions. We need to move things along. One of the ways we need to do that is schedule monthly meetings. Enough with this ad hoc, or, back it up with, well, if we don't schedule it, we're forced to every quarter because there's a resolution. Resolutions don't seem to hold much water in the long term. And I say that because we've had the board came up with a resolution in the last cohort, the last term, I should say, that required the CDFA to provide a complete budget update at every meeting. We have been lacking those, and we are lacking that today, it appears. So having said that, and just for those people, and I'm sorry I didn't identify myself more properly, I'm the president of the California Hemp Association and Foundation. So Mark, that's who will be contacting you later. Just wanted to say this is a better direction. We need more proaction from both the committee and from internally in CDFA and this program. One thing that concerned me regarding the state plan, a comment that was made after the question was asked by Rob to Joshua Kress. Joshua, is it your intent that this board will never see the draft copy before you submit it to CDFA? Because that's what it sounded like your process was. Is that true? And I'll hold my comment at that time.
Thank you for your comments, Wayne. And the department is working actively with USDA to make amendments to our current regulations, proposed regulations and current law. And we'll be submitting that to USDA based off of the requirements of the final rule. We are not planning on doing any additional outreach or vetting of that regulation. Prior to that, however, we will be doing standard vetting of any changes to regulation, as we always do. And again, the components of the plan that CDFA has discretion on have been discussed with the board already. So no, we are not planning on bringing that to the board again in the interest of the timeline to make sure that we are able to comply with federal rules.
Well, that seems to be a shortcoming that really must be taken into account. This board is here for a reason, to advise your activities and your department. And by, I understand you're saying, well, we don't really need to show you the stuff that we're required to change. I think that's not true. I think you need to, that the board needs to review all of it, offer up some comments where appropriate and necessary, and effect some changes before a final submitted plan. This is our plan, not your plan. We're the ones who will be left over holding the bag with whatever the CDFA creates. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any more public comments on this agenda item?
Yes, Richard, we do. We have one from Chris Boucher. Chris, I'm going to unmute you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, this is Chris Boucher. I'm with Formtiva. We are a hemp seed breeder. I'm also director with the California Industrial Hemp Farmers Guild. And one, I wanted to thank Mark McGoughlin, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it correctly, for listening in and hearing. Also, I just kind of want to reiterate what Rob Porcella said about the committees, how important it is that standing committees be established specifically with the budget and fees. I sell seeds to several farmers around the state, also around the globe. And the last few months, the new fees that have been initiated are just egregious. This $2,000 is beyond comprehensions. It's egregious. When you look at the right to farm, brought this up several times here in California, that we have a right to farm. However, the family farmer, the minority farmers, the veteran farmers, this $2,000 fee really puts a lot of people, outside the game. And I don't know how they came up with this, with the budget fees, without going through the committees and really looking at all the manufacturers and the processors, why they're not contributing to the budget. And again, I think immediately some type of committee should be established to look at these fees, because it's really pushing a lot of small farmers out of the game. And then number two is a committee set up on the regulations of AB 45, and specifically what the DCC and the CDPH is going to regulate within our industry and what input the board has on it. And Mark McLaughlin, if you're listening, I think this is really important that the IHAB has some type of say in these regulations that are going to be carved out and established. So those are my two issues that I hope the board can take into consideration and start setting up committees and really effectively using their power to push this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any other public comments on this
Richard,
agenda item? Yes.
it looks like Wayne Richmond has another comment. Wayne, I will unmute you, but you do have 30 seconds remaining on this agenda item.
Great, thank you. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I understand the 30 seconds. So as we're talking about the fees, and couldn't agree more that they're egregious and they don't cover enough allowances for people of the types mentioned, I would like to point out to the entire group, for those who haven't already seen copies of it, those associated with me, we have submitted a multi-tier and multi-cultivar type a fee proposal, and again, we have yet to hear anything back. They've had it plenty of time, I would think, to analyze it or put it forth to this board. Again, somehow this becomes a neglected agenda item. I understand there's some number crunching, but seriously, 14 days and we still can't get this put on the agenda so that we can have the conversation where, how do we include people of color? How do we include small farmers? How do we make this equitable all the way around? And as we come into these new regulations, how that affects the pricing and the marketplace and our competitiveness vis-a-vis the rest of the states in the country and the planet at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any more public comments on this agenda item?
Hey, Richard, you had a written public comment as well. Shadi, do you want to read the written public comments?
Yeah, sure. So we have a written public comment from Bianca Oxnard, and she stated that, yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm a Black woman growing hemp pretty much on my own. I'm equity eligible in a different county, and I'm all for adding input to what can happen from a grower's perspective. Looking forward to CDPH update of CDPH information on industrial hemp derivatives, including CBD. And she also stated, thank you, Mark, for your comments on AB 45 and unintentional equity leave-outs. And those are all the public comments that we have for this agenda item.
Thank you, Shadi. Well, moving along, our next agenda item is review the list of approved cultivars and procedures and methodology to amend the list of approved cultivars. Go ahead, Locke.
Thank you, Rachel. Once again, everyone, my name is Roxanne. I'm with CDFA's Industrial Hemp Program. So in regards to providing a review on the list of approved cultivars, as well as methodology and procedures to adjust the list of approved cultivars. So we'll start with section 4921, as that is actually the procedures that outlines the requirements for us to actually add, remove, or amend the list of approved cultivars. So section 4921 outlines the requirements for that. And so it pertains to adding, removing, and amending cultivars from the list of approved cultivars. So we'll go to do a really quick walkthrough of what 4921 consists of at this time. So section 4921A is about adding and removing and amending the list. So with that, it requires first a request from either the board chair or 4 members of the board. Upon that request, CDFA will then schedule a public hearing to consider a proposal to update the list. A notice and text of the proposal will be available to the public no less than 30 days prior to the hearing. And the hearing will be part of a regularly scheduled Industrial Hemp Advisory Board meeting. The public hearing will then include a presentation of the proposal, the purpose of the update, and then of course, an opportunity for the public to comment. Afterwards, the board will then vote to either accept, amend, and accept, or deny the proposal for the recommendation to the secretary. With the board's recommendation if they do decide to adopt, and with the approval by the secretary, CDFA will then amend the list and submit the amended list to the Office of Administrative Law to be filed with the Secretary of State immediately. And it is exempt, it is considered a file in print, so it's exempt from the Administrative Procedures Act. As for Section 4920B, this actually pertains to amending the methodology and procedures to update the list. So this process is very much just similar to the update for the list of cultivars. So instead of on the request of a board member or four members of the board, instead through a board motion, the board would then recommend to amend the methodology and procedures in subsection A. So in consultation with the chair of the board, CDFA will then schedule a board hearing to consider the proposal to amend. And once more, like the process for amending the list of approved cultivars, the notice and a text of the proposal will be available to the public no less than 30 days prior to the hearing. The hearing will be part of a scheduled Industrial Hemp Advisory Board meeting. The public hearing will include a presentation of the proposal to amend the methodology and procedures, and the purpose for the update, and then an opportunity for public comment. Once again, afterwards, after the public comments, the board would then vote to either accept, amend, and accept, or deny the proposal for recommendation to the secretary. And then with the board's recommendation to adopt and the approval by the secretary, CDFA will then amend the list, amend the methodology and procedures, and then submit the amended language to the Office of Administrative Law for their file to be filed with the Secretary of State promptly. Once again, that is also exempt from the Administrative Procedures Act. So in here, as you see, that there are some markings found on the text right now. There were changes in the law in which seed cultivars were then changed to cultivars. So with that, as you see, we have made edits where all the words seed is found, and before the word cultivar has been removed, and that would be required to update with the laws that we currently have. So we'll go ahead and open it for any questions that the board may have on 4921 before we move to 4920.
Rob Porcella here. So I have a question on this. It comes back to what I was speaking about earlier. So if in order to streamline this verification process for the counties and remove some of that financial burden from the counties and CDFA, is this where we would make a motion to amend the methodology and procedures, and so that we can start working to streamline that process?
So 4921 right now, Rob, of what we're speaking is actually to amend the process to update the list. So if we're talking about updating the list itself, that's what 4921 walks through that process. But if you're talking about amending the list itself, that's 4920, and that's what we'll discuss right after the questions from the board members. Any questions from the board members?
Okay. I'm just wanting to make a motion where appropriate, as far as making an amendment to the methodology and procedures so that we can streamline this. So
so right now, in what we have in 4920, it's just on the request from either the chair of the board or 4 members of the board. And so with that, then we'll have a public hearing with the proposed text.
Yeah, and Locke, just to clarify here for Rob, so a board motion could be utilized for either purpose. So right now, Locke's running through the procedure to make changes to the list, and then she'll walk through the list and the kind of the bare minimum changes to comply with current law on both the methodology and procedure as well as the list itself. And then, yes, we would want a board motion to make the changes to proceed with making the process for making the changes to the methodology procedure. And then secondarily, either a board motion or a recommendation from the chair or the 4 members of the board to make changes to the list itself, which is, I think, where your concern lies is the actual list and what's required to comply with that.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob, to me, it sounded like you were interested in streamlining the methodology itself. And if that was the case, I would suggest that we, have a discussion about it. Unless you were prepared to actually suggest a precise way we were going to do that, then maybe we'd want to try to schedule time to talk about it or something. But
well, it had been brought up previously, but there was the big concern I had with streamlining it was, I'm trying to think back to I don't want to call it a portal, or I guess a website or a secure website that counties, when doing an initial verification of a variety, could link to CDFA, do the confirmation, and then have it basically logged on this website. And then from there, any other counties, ag people that were trying to verify the same variety could very quickly look at that. Now, what I do recall was that there was a price tag on it of $700,000 or $800,000 in order to accommodate this methodology. And I can't remember the time frame, but I thought it was 6 months or more, which seemed totally excessive as far as the price tag on it, and then the timeline as well, because it seems as something so simple as a secure website that CDFA could host, and then have the counties do a simple verification, as opposed to having to recalling the same labs over and over and over again, and trying to confirm. That is the proposal that I'm wanting to make. And again, I don't want to duplicate things. I don't want us doing redundant work at all. I want my only goal here is to try to streamline this procedure. It's what I've been doing in business for years, and I just want to see that same application of process here.
So Rob, it sounds like what you're talking about is the county process for confirming that something is on the list, which would be the next section. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe if Locke can go through the next section and walk through that and discuss any potential changes there that might help streamline that process. And then if what you're thinking of is outside of that, that's something we can discuss for future investigation, future board meetings, things like that. Locke, do you want to keep going?
Yes, I'll go ahead and speak about 4920. So with 4920 is the list of approved cultivars. So in this, the list talks about 5 sources of where the cultivars can come from. So in the first section, it talks about seed and propagative materials that is coming from a certification program, either from CCIA, IOSCA, OECD. The second is any seed or propagative material that is produced in a quality assurance program, which is also approved by a certifying agency such as IOSCA, OECD as well. The third section is seeds and propagative materials that are produced from another state's ag pilot program in pursuant to Section 7606 of the Federal Agriculture Act of 2014, so the 2014 Farm Bill. And with that, It does specify that the crop from which those seed or propagative materials were harvested from, it needs to be tested in accordance with the testing method that is approved by that state regulatory authority. And then it has to be found no more than 0.3% THC on a dry weight basis. In addition to that, those materials, since it's out of state, it would require that the commissioner be notified of the importation of it, and these shipments are subjected to inspection and should not be used for cultivation upon the release, until the release by the commissioner. And that's in accordance to the Food and Agricultural Code, sections 6401 and 6501. The fourth is any kind of seeds and tissue culture plants imported from outside the US. So these are out of the country sources. And so with that, those crops or seed, the crop from which those seeds or tissue culture plants from which it was harvested from have to be tested in accordance with the testing method by the country's Department of Agriculture. And of course, it also would have to be found less than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. With that, because it is also materials from out of the that is out of the country and is moving into the county, it is also subjected to the requirements outlined in FAC sections 6401 and 6501, similar to the seeds and propagated materials that are outside of the state in other state pilot programs. For the purpose of this section as well, there is a definition for tissue culture, and it's specified as an in vitro material introduced into culture from novel cuttings at a particular time and from a single plant and grown in aseptic conditions to be used as a source of propagative materials. And then finally, the fifth source is any kind of seed or propagative materials that are actually produced in California in accordance with Division 24 of the Food and Agriculture Code, as well as Chapter 8 of Title 3 of the California Code of Regulations, which is the industrial hemp cultivation regulations. And then, of course, it also specifies that the crop from the seed or in the propagative materials were harvested from also needs to be tested by a department-approved laboratory and then to be found no more than 0.9% THC on a dry weight basis. For potential changes that we saw to kind of update the list for the changes that's been happening, as well as for some clarification due to changes in the law, as you see once more where you see seed cultivars, it has now, the word seed has been removed to just specify just cultivars. And in addition to that, in section 4920, A, can you go? A3, you can see that we have added the additional, in the underline, we have the additional language that is also for anybody who's participating in a state, approved state, tribal, or federal regulatory plan for hemp production. And that's in accordance with 2018 Farm Bill. And then in addition to that, on section 4920A5, we also included the requirement for shipment because that is also applicable between interstate movement as well. So the language that you found in section 4920E3 as well as 4920A4 for out of the state and out of the country shipments, that language is also found in the section for materials produced in California because it is also applicable for interstate shipments. And I'll go ahead and open for comments from the board.
Okay, thanks, Locke. I appreciate that. Guess we're just continuing on what Rob was talking about earlier. Maybe this is one abstraction from the specifics he was talking about, but the list we have is great. It provides protection for growers. Growers should have access to any cultivars that meet the existing requirements. And any like verified list that was considered, the intention there should only be streamlining the approval process because that is a little convoluted. Streamlining the approval process at the county or the state level, and not in any way limiting what growers can cultivate. The list as it exists is good, and I don't think I don't see any reason that it should be changed. Thank you.
Richard, are you there?
Richard,
Any
Richard's
additional
muted.
conversation from the board? There's Richard.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, somehow I got muted. Well, are there any other comments from the board? And I'd like to thank you, Locke. And thank you, Josh. Do we have any more comments from the board?
Well, not a comment, but a question, still wanting to, implement some action items here, and whether or not now is the appropriate time for a motion to, place a standing committee in place on the rules and regs, or the budget and deficit committees. I just want to offer those motions up at appropriate times.
Yeah.
Josh. So Rob, before we move on to any kind of other actions by the board, looking at the list of approved cultivars that we've got in place here with the minor edits from Locke, did you agree with Jack that you don't see any need for any additional conversation or edits? Is there something you wanted to discuss further on the list itself that you feel would help to streamline the process by clarifying anything here?
No, I don't think anything in the language. It's more of, again, the process is my concern. Strictly streamline this confirmation or verification process, so that we don't have redundancy in this, and so that we can just limit the budget expenses is what I'm tying this back to.
And Rob, you're particularly thinking about the county, right? A farmer's experience.
Absolutely, because this is the county members that I've spoken with are the ones that are complaining about this process. They're very frustrated with it. It's very time consuming. It's, redundant and utterly pointless, because everyone understands that, well, look, we need some level of traceability here to keep people accountable, and understand that hemp farmers are acting in good faith with the varieties they intend to grow. But ultimately, we have to pass a pre-harvest test to show that our material is compliant. And they understand that is the deciding factor. So why are we wasting so much time at the beginning of this process and just bogging the farmers and the county people down with silly redundant processes that really don't matter, because ultimately a pre-harvest test will determine.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, or would anybody like to make a motion on this agenda item? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So
Okay.
Richard, before you move on, so it looks like Wayne does have a comment, but before we get to that, so would the board like CDFA to move forward with making the minor updates that have been noted here by Locke as part of a board meeting in 30 days to update the regulation and make it consistent with current federal law and current state law?
And specifically, that is striking the word seed when it is before the word cultivar?
Yes, striking the word seed before the word cultivar. And then Locke also noted two other items. One was to add the provision pertaining to the 2018 Farm Bill for out-of-state materials. Currently, it only references the 2014 Farm Bill. And then also just updating and adding in the provision regarding the inter-county shipment of planting materials, not just interstate planting of interstate shipment of planting materials, as those same laws apply to both. And so just to be consistent and make sure that's clear that those laws do still apply to inter-county nursery stock shipments, we just wanted to make sure that that was clear and include that provision there as well.
So you're saying an inter-county nursery stock shipment would have the same regulations as an interstate nursery stock shipment, so the ag department needs to be notified so they can come to check for pests, that type of thing, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Would
I feel
anybody
like
like,
most of these are common sense changes. I don't see any underlying intent there other than, you know, simple clarification and some common sense. I'm in support of the changes as far as I can see. They seem to make sense.
I'd like to talk about the inter-county. Are you saying, Joshua, that that's a federal requirement? Because that's not been something that we've experienced to this point. That's an extra hurdle for us, basically.
That's a state requirement for all nursery stock. It's not hemp specific. That's a state requirement for the movement of nursery stock from one county to another, is that it either has to have a nursery stock certificate or require notification of the county agricultural commissioner. That's a standard statewide requirement for all nursery stock. It's again, it's not hemp specific. We want to make sure that hemp growers, since many of them are not general nursery growers, are aware of that requirement as well. And that's why it was incorporated in when this regulation was first written up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jack? Do we have more comments from the board, or would anybody like to make a motion? Okay, I'd like to make a motion for
Wait,
those.
do you want to go to Wayne's comment before you make a motion? It looks like Wayne's
Sure. Okay.
Wayne, if you wanted to comment prior.
Hi,
Wayne,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would suggest that we not make a motion to adopt this just yet. I'd sit on this until the next meeting and let all the appropriate stakeholders digest this and the specific language. Generally, I would agree with what I'm hearing. However, speaking to Rob's point about creating frictionless interactions in the process, this one creates another point of friction that certainly some kind of website, and again, we can speak about how ridiculous the numbers. I mean, in this day and age, for those kinds of simple tasks to be done in this would enable the ag offices in each county to quickly verify, and therefore this anyway, I think we should take a little time and just review this, not adopt it so quickly, and I'll leave my comments there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
To Wayne's point, is there any issue with postponing this till next meeting, so we do have more time to digest it?
Well, I mean, Locke or even Lisa or any of the commissioners can correct me if I'm wrong, but right now the list of approved cultivars does not include planting materials that are grown in states that are growing under an approved plan under the 2018 Farm Bill. And so that would restrict the ability of California growers to be able to utilize those planting materials in California. So that would be the concern that I foresee. Otherwise, the use of the word seed, while it's obviously no longer correct, I don't see that as necessarily being a big hangup. But staff or county commissioners, if you have any further input, please feel free.
Yeah, Josh, are you suggesting that without this language that bringing plants or nursery stock or seed from other states would be problematic to get them into California?
I'm saying that it's not currently listed, but yes, if someone from either the county or from staff want to clarify if we actually had any issues getting approval on that side of things, please clarify, although the approvals under the 2018 Farm Bill are fairly recent, so.
Josh, this is Lisa Herbert. I am not aware that we've had any issues in our office, but that doesn't mean I don't have information from other ag commissioners at this time.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any other comments from the board or for the public?
Richard, we do have a couple of written public comments. The
Okay,
first one comes from Bianca Oxnard. She stated that they should be able to re-implement a health information exchange for cultivars. And then Josh Schneider made a comment that this is an improvement to the current system and will improve the process as well as access to more improved genetics. It also gives the IHAB more authority to make changes in the future. And that is all the public comments that I see.
thank you. Well, I still like to make a motion. I mean, to me, there's not much to digest there. It's changing the words, eliminating the word seed, following the law that I used to have a nursery in a couple different states, and to move things from county to county. That's always been a law. And on the other one, from bringing things from out of state, I think that should be able to do that. So I make a motion to pass those three things. Does anybody want to make a second? I guess not. So
Well, I guess seeing that motion died, I'd like to make a motion that we revisit this at the next meeting. Is that sensible?
Sure. Do we have a second?
You don't, just to be clear, you don't need a motion to discuss at the next meeting.
Okay.
And just to clarify the process would be that we would have a motion to move forward with the process. Starting at this meeting, we would schedule a meeting for further board discussion and a final vote prior to implementation at a meeting that's at least 30 days out. So I just want to be clear as far as what the process is there. And so if Richard's motion, if somebody did want to second it, that would be the process, would be that the document, the information that you see in front of you would be posted for the public to be able to review and make any comments on, and then we would come back together in a board meeting at least 30 days out for the board to actually make a final motion on whether or not to accept those changes. Just want to be clear on the process.
Okay, well, look, if that's the process, then this is a sensible way to move this forward timely with that motion. I mean, I would be willing to second it. That brings it to, I'd be willing to second Richard's motion and then bring this back for a final vote at the next meeting, which is going to be, as we know, at least 30 days out, and give the members of the public still time to digest, re-comment on this. And yeah, so I'll go ahead and second Richard's motion so we can move this in a forward direction.
Okay, we have a second. So then we'll take a vote then.
Go ahead and open it up to discussion. And it looked like Lisa had her hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you, Lisa Herbert. I think that I would like to have the documentation in writing. I just went back through the posting and I did not see this listed. So, you know, waiting so we can actually read it in person and look through it would be ideal, because we did not receive it ahead of time.
Thank you, Lisa.
This is Vanessa. Actually, I was looking for the same thing, and it is a link. So it is not an attachment. I just found it as a link because I wanted to read it.
Where did you find that link, Vanessa? Was it in the agenda?
In the agenda, there is a link for these. Yes, it's in blue. You know, all of the letters are black and the link is blue.
Okay. Okay.
The same thing. I just found it. Just looking through it right now.
So moving forward, do we have any other comments?
So to be clear on the what this motion is going to do, we are going to by voting approving this motion, we would be submitting this language for public comment, which would then come back to us. That public comment would then come back to us, and we would then have the ability to make a final approval. And this is not in any way a final approval of this language, correct?
Correct. So CDFA would post the language along with the meeting notice that's at least 30 days out. And then we would come back at a future board meeting to receive public comments. And CDFA would report any comments that were submitted in writing as we would normally do. And then the board would vote at that time on whether or not to accept the changes or make further amendments.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have any other comments from the board? Well, moving forward, then we do have a second. So we'll take a vote here.
You also have to go to public comments, please.
Okay, let's hear public comments.
We have a public comment from Wayne Richmond. Wayne, you should have the ability to unmute yourself.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hi, Wayne Richmond, California Hemp Association President. Based on what was just described in terms of some process and how this is not a final vote and it's going out to the public, I will withdraw my objection if that's what it came across as. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had enough time to digest it. It seems some of the board members needed some extra time as well. And I'm satisfied that this does in fact cover that in a proper way. So if it sounded like I had an objection before, I will make sure that I'm removing it now. And I like this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have any more public comments? Okay, moving forward then, we'll take a vote. Van, how do you vote? Is Van still with us?
I am here. Yes, I vote yes on this.
Okay, Lisa, how do you vote? Are you there, Lisa?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Jack, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Rob, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Okay, Vanessa, how do you
Yes.
vote? Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and I vote yes. And Lucas, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. And this will come back and we'll review it at the next meeting after public comments. Okay, moving forward. So the next item is public comments on matters not on the agenda. So let's hear some public comments. We don't hear anything. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Richard.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure. I didn't hear him.
Absolutely.
Well, then we're moving on.
We've
We'll
got some
have-
hands up, Richard.
Oh, we do. Okay, well, let's hear some public comments.
We have a public comment from Justin Eve. Justin, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Yeah, this is Justin Eve with the Hemp Farmers Guild. I just wanted to make sure that you guys are scheduling a meeting for the next meeting before ending this meeting. And then, because, we really want to make sure to get some of this stuff taken care of. And the other thing is I didn't hear, maybe I might have missed it for some reason, but did you guys were able to form any committees or working groups around any of these issues that you guys brought up?
Well, no, we haven't formed any committees yet, but the next item on the agenda is talking about the next meeting. Do we have any more public comments? And thank you, Justin.
We have a public comment from Wayne Richmond. Wayne, you've been unmuted.
Great, thank you. Wayne Richmond, President, California Hemp Association. So earlier I asked the question about the a fee proposal that our group submitted to CDFA through Joshua Kress regarding some new ideas on fees and proposals along that idea. And I asked, why is it taking so long? And why hasn't the board been given the information so that this can be considered while that consideration process is still underway in the secretary's office? To go to $2,000, you might as well kill the industry, pack up your desks and go home, because there won't be an industry here for you to regulate. So in that vein, that's of urgent matter. It covers equity issues. It covers different cultivars and outcomes. We think it's a better than one size fits all approach. So again, I'm going to ask the question of Joshua Kress. Why is it taking so long to get that out to the board members for consideration? The numbers crunching is not very difficult. Thank you. I'll hold now and wait for an answer.
Thank you, Wayne.
Hey, Wayne, and I'm going to go ahead and remind you that the public comment period is intended for comments to the board, but I will go ahead and answer your question very quickly. And you and I did have extensive conversation about your proposal, and we requested additional information from you, and you provided some of that. At this time, CDFA did not feel that your proposal had enough information or data to be able to move forward with, and we would not be bringing something to the board that we were not prepared to actually move forward with on a regulation perspective. However, if any board member would like to bring forth a proposal regarding a fee, they are welcome to do so at a board meeting and can request that at a future board meeting. But at this time, CDFA did not feel that your proposal was something that we were planning on moving forward with. CDFA is planning on moving forward with amending fees. That plan is not yet completed, and we will be moving forward in the near future. I don't have any additional details at this time. However, there will be the increase at some point, and there will be some additional conversation. However, if the board would like to bring forth a proposal or would like to schedule a committee meeting to discuss this again, we've done this many times with the board already. The board has brought forth a number of different proposals to the full board for a vote and a recommendation, and unfortunately the only one that passed was that $2,000 one. So this has been an ongoing conversation for about 2 years now with the board. But if the board would like to move forward with establishing a work group to investigate this further and come forth with a new recommendation, the board is welcome to do so.
Wayne, this is Rob Porcella. I think I'd like to address this for you by way of making a motion to establish a standing committee that would be looking at our budget and deficit issues, and I would like to see what that proposal looks like. That's not been forwarded to us at this point. Obviously, they feel there's some concerns with it internally, but I think as board members on a committee that are looking at budget and deficit issues, I think this plan that you've submitted may be something, well, it's definitely something I'd like to take a look at. But I think we need to. I think a motion needs to be made to establish a budget and deficit committee that could look at these types of proposals and bring them to the entire board if it is something that may prove valuable to us.
Well, terrific. I would so support that, Rob. I think that here's a prime example of what's wrong with the program in terms of a process, right? So basically what we have here for everybody to listen, I have had some emails back and forth, provided some information, and some of it, the questions that are asked show a distinct lack of knowledge in both business and the hemp industry, on the part of the people asking me the questions in the emails. In fact, I've sent out some of those for our working group to also make some comments on. At no point was I told, however, that we think your proposal is ridiculous on its face, and so we're not going to present it. And that's the part that concerns me, because throughout the last 4 years, it seems that there are gremlins behind the scenes that we never get to see or hear from, that make decisions regarding whether it's through the Office of Administrative Law or regulations and whatnot. It's kind of like, just as they described today with the state plan. Oh, you'll see it after we've produced it. You won't have any more input at this point, period. We're not going to give you, as a board, even the courtesy. We're just going to send it off. And then once we're done messing with USDA. And you know, I mean, I could start asking questions like, who are you dealing with at USDA? Because I happen to know Sonia Jimenez and Bill Richmond and the whole team. And so I don't understand why it is that this is taking forever. And our members are just as frustrated as I sound now. So I'm doing that on purpose to represent the collective frustration of those who have to deal with the CDFA, Department of Industrial Hemp. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have some more public comments?
We have a public comment from Josh Snyder. Josh Snyder should have the ability to unmute yourself.
Hi all, this is Josh Schneider from the Hemp Farmers Guild. I'm also a hemp young plant producer in San Diego. My question is more, I suppose, mundane, but we have heard repeatedly from CDFA and many farmers and other ag commissioners that the current system made no allowance for nursery production in regulations. This has created a system where people like my company are struggling with the inconsistent application of a confusing and poorly drafted law that was structured based on how CDFA thought the industry would develop, but that is not how it developed. The fixation on an approved cultivars list is a strange thing. In theory, the point of it is to make sure that there is consistency in cannabinoid production, the only regulatory hinge in this whole process. And yet AOSCA and none of the other seed certification agencies consider cannabinoid content at all. They are looking for genetic consistency and phenotypic consistency. And so it would seem important to create a system that accommodates nurseries, which would potentially limit the back and forth that we've seen so often. So I'm in San Diego County working with the lovely people at the Ag Commissioner's Office. They take our certificates of analysis and verify them. And then we have a customer in another county in this state, and the CDFA denies the same COAs that they approved 2 weeks earlier. And so this inconsistent application of the law creates mass confusion and a tremendous amount of frustration from both agriculture commissioner offices, farmers, and certainly it's got to be difficult for CDFA. And so I would ask for the board to encourage CDFA to develop a process for nurseries, perhaps for pre-registration or along the lines of what Rob was talking about. I think that's a great idea, so that the same COA doesn't have to be vetted by everyone 10 or 20 times. That just doesn't make any sense. And so I would ask the board to consider directing CDFA to come up with some options for how to structure the regulatory approach as the industry actually is, not as CDFA and the governor thought it would be 4 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Do we have any more public comments?
Richard, there are no additional public comments.
Thank you, Shadi. Well, the next.
Did
item
Rob have a
on-
motion out there? This is Luke Wilson, sorry.
Is there a motion?
Well, yes, at the appropriate time, I wanted to put forth, well, two separate motions. I feel that the first motion I wanted to put forward was that we have a standing, well, I think most importantly, a rules and regulations committee that, again, some of the things we just looked at, 4920, 4921, we would, be actively working with CDFA on that. Anything as far as AB 45 is concerned. So yes, I would like to start with the first motion of establishing a standing rules and regulations committee that would be interacting with CDFA and bringing the pertinent information to the board at the time of the meetings.
I would second that. This is Luke Wilson.
Just to clarify for process real quick, a committee does not need to be established by motion. The chair can establish a committee on their own without a formal motion. However, if you'd like to move forward with the motion, you can, but it's not required to establish a committee. And just to clarify, and Rob, this committee does not exist yet, but there are a couple of ongoing committees that have been underway at the board or work task forces, I think is what we're calling them, regarding budgets and fees in the past. And so just for that consideration as well for part of the board's discussion moving forward with this agenda item.
Josh, are there any existing committees or task forces at the moment? And what could you list them if there are?
I'll lean on staff for that, Shadi, or the members of those task forces.
Yes, so Jack, we have two task force right now. So one is the budget task force, and currently it only has one board member on it, that is Van. And then the other is the registration fee task force, and that includes Vanessa and Lisa on that task force.
Thank you.
Did you have Rob? Were you done, Rob?
Well, no, Richard, if you're, well, so again, I don't want to be cumbersome with the requests that I'm making. Sounds like we have two task force. If those are not active task forces, is it appropriate to either, eliminate those task forces and bring forth two new task forces or committees or whatever we want to call them? I want this to be something where we have active participation from board members and we essentially have homework after each meeting. And that homework is to do our research, look into these items that, are pertinent and pressing and affecting the industry in a negative way. And that we're actively looking for solutions that we can bring back at the next meeting. And whatever way it needs to be done, if I need to make motions, if Richard, you have the ability as the chair to establish these task forces, or if it is more appropriate that you modify the existing task forces, then I am open to whichever way, whatever works best, whatever is the least cumbersome and redundant and the most efficient. This is how business is done, in my opinion. So unfortunately, I don't know the inner workings yet, of how these things work. So I turn to you members at CDFA to help guide me and hope that you can understand what it is, my requests are and what's the best way to implement these ideas.
Yeah, and Rob, just a point of clarification for you, because I know you're a little bit newer to the board. So any group of two board members can meet on their own without public notice. However, if a third board member becomes involved in that conversation, not just as part of the conversation directly in a meeting, but even sequential conversations via email, then that requires public notice and would be required to be done at a public meeting per the Bagley Cleanup and Meeting Act. So a group of two board members can work on their own as a task force and come back to the board with either information or recommendations and can meet at their discretion. They just have to report back what it is they looked into, who they talked to, and what it is that they're recommending. But they can do so with a lot more flexibility if the board is interested, we have had groups of 3 or more in the past with this board and other boards. Those meetings can still occur if you'd like that additional input. The problem is that we have to go through the open meeting notification processes.
I have a question, Josh. Lisa and I had the presentation on the fees. It was passed. At this point, it is very obvious that everyone wants to review it. What has to be done in this case? I honestly didn't think, and Lisa and I have not met again to review these. And if this needs to be revived, this task force needs to be revised, and other people or other members want to be part of it, and I can excuse myself, that then we need to do it, right? So what happens here since the motion, it had been passed?
Yeah, so again, that's at the board's and the chair's discretion on who serves on these different groups. So if you're not interested in continuing on and want to give somebody else opportunity to investigate this further and to work on this issue, yeah, that's at your discretion. I know Van, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, this is Van, and I just wanted to say, Rob, I think I shared a lot of your concerns and was on a task force for 4 months before you joined the board, which we reviewed basically all the spending of the state. And, I think it would be great to have someone else take a look at that. And if you want to revisit those issues, that sounds great to me. I'd be happy to share the presentation we put together and all the information. But if that's an area you're interested, Richard, I would suggest that you replace me on that board with Rob, and have Rob find one other person to jump in and go from there.
Thank you, Van. So, Rob, are you interested?
Yes, I am. I'm a little bit, frankly, almost more interested in the rules and regulations side, but I would be open
Me as
to.
well, Rob. I'll do the state plan committee with you. I mean, interrupt, but I'm on the same thing you are.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm open to either task force, wherever, whatever it takes to start getting things done. I'm open.
It did sound to me like if people want to work on the budget and the fee structure, that those task forces could be molded together. They sound like they're, two sides of the same coin.
Okay, Rob and Jack, sounds like you want to be on the Rules and Regulation Committee.
Lisa has her hand up.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask Josh Kress, before we get started in a rules or a legislative committee, Josh, what information are you allowed to give the board that the board is not currently receiving? So I'm afraid that if a new committee is created, that there are such things as drafts that CDFA cannot share legally with the board. So then the point would be moot. I just want clarification on that before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, that's a good question. That's something we'll have to explore internally and figure out if there's any limitations on what we can and cannot share or what we can and cannot discuss. I suspect even if we are not allowed to be sharing drafts, specifically having conversations about existing regs and the need to make changes probably can be fairly open. But that's something that we would explore with the members that were assigned and something we'll look into further. And just really quickly, I know there was a comment made in the written comments there from Josh Schneider asking about the number of members permitted to meet outside of official meetings and whether that changes with board membership. It does not. That 2-member threshold is consistent with all boards and committees and all public bodies that I'm aware of. And so that's consistent across the board. It doesn't matter whether the board has 6 members or 22. I believe that requirement's the same.
Thank you, Josh.
to the prospective rulemaking committee, I appreciate Lisa's input there. The way I feel about it is that for next meeting agenda items, there's several things that I want to suggest that are potential changes to the rules that could be made. And that's something that I'm going to be likely researching and working on myself. And given the Open Meeting Act, I could involve one other board member, just like Rob and I had made a commentary on SB 292 a couple meetings ago. But if there were more board members that were interested in doing some collaborative homework on that, that would facilitate the need for a committee.
Thank you, Jack.
Is my understanding.
I see a hand up here.
Richard, we have a public comment from Justin Eve.
Okay.
Justin, you've been unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, and this is Justin Eve with the Hemp Farmers Guild. We're doing some research on the Bagley Clean Act, and from our understanding, I believe that the members can meet as many as they want, but there's certain things they just cannot discuss. And so it sounds like you're saying that there's no way for two or more board members to be in the same place at the same time while they're serving the board, no matter what. Is that correct? Or is it that they just can't discuss certain things?
So just to clarify, thank you, Justin. So they cannot discuss board business. And so the things that are being talked about here are board business. And so, yeah, they would not be able to meet to discuss board business outside of a public forum. We are aware that people do tend to end up at the same meetings when you tend to be in the same industry. Those things do happen. And so when those occasions occur, we do work with the board when we're aware of them to try to make sure that the board is clear on the requirements and making sure that they're not discussing board business outside of a public forum. And making sure that we're meeting all the notification requirements and things like that. Thanks.
Do we have more public comment, Shadi?
At this time, Richard, we do not. We do have a hand raised from Wayne Richmond, but he has already exhausted his 3 minutes for this agenda item, but he will have the ability to comment on the next agenda item.
Shadi, this would be the next agenda item because we're talking about the next meeting, correct? I believe we're on to the next agenda item if you want to go to Wayne.
Okay, we'll go to Wayne. Wayne, you've been unmuted and you now have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, Wayne Richmond, President of California Hemp Association. I just wanted to, one, support what Jack was saying about possibly merging those two groups. I think that makes a lot of sense. Two sides of the same coin is what it sounds like from this side as well. And I would say that I appreciate the work the board is doing, the direction today in working to streamline some of these processes and get real industry folks involved who matter, and that's the farmers first and foremost in our opinion. So thank you for that. One question about the Bagley Act. You know, we have had in other committees, even USDA, where trade people with subject matter experts, I guess that's what you formally call them, are allowed to be brought into meetings by board members by invitation. Certainly in the past, we've had, you know, attorneys with their own lobbying interest come and speak to the board. We've had book authors come and speak to the board. So I just wanted to make certain that that is still available. And for those board members who may not be aware, that's another way to kind of bring information and interact more granularly with the board activities. And then I would also ask, with regard to the 2 members meeting limitation, that does not preclude them from meeting with industry officials or politicians or anybody else in the industry. Is that correct? Thank you. I'll stop here.
I'll go ahead and add a couple of clarifications there. So regarding the 2 members on the task force, they are to investigate a matter, and that would involve speaking with other individuals that would be subject matter experts on that topic. And regarding Wayne's additional comment regarding inviting subject matter experts to speak at board meetings, yes, we certainly have done that with this meeting in the past and could continue to do so at the board's recommendation.
Thank you, Josh. Do we have more public comments?
I have some comment, Richard. I can wait until the public's done or not.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks. So since we're on to next meeting agenda items, there's several things I'd like to discuss. First is a process, I guess a procedural issue about asking you, Richard, how to if it's both if it's possible and how to submit issues for the next agenda or future agendas outside of a meeting. I sent you 2 emails between this meeting and the last meeting requesting the agenda items for discussion. One was about the state fair. The California State Fair is going to have a cannabis competition in the 2022, and it's not completely clear whether hemp is allowed in this competition. It appears to me by looking at the language that it's not, and if it's not, it should be, and I think it's something we should be talking about. And also, I think I wanted to talk about some rulemaking stuff, about the pre-harvest 11-day window issue. I had requested we talk about that. So my question is, I guess my first question is there a proper way to submit items to the agenda outside of the meeting? And what would that be?
Hey, Jack. So normally with boards, the request would be sent to the chair, and normally we would recommend that you also copy staff as well. So they're aware and can follow up. And if it's something you're planning on presenting, staff would need to work with you on making sure that you have what you need to be able to present. So we would recommend you copy staff as well. But yeah, normally it would be reaching out to the chair and to staff ahead of the agenda being published, or discussing it now in the prior meeting as well.
Okay, and Richard, would the correct email be the Snooki 1950 to or thereabouts to contact you for agenda items and copying Shadi in? Does that sound correct?
That's correct. And on the state fair, the cannabis people are putting that on, and to get into the state fair, you got to get a hold of the state. I've been in the state fair a couple times, and to get a reservation, you got to be in the fair. You got to look ahead, way ahead to get in, and you just contact the state fair, and they'll tell you if they have room.
Well, there's a cannabis competition the state fair is advertising, and they say, to paraphrase, I'm not looking at the exact process right now, but they say through a licensed, I believe they say something like through a licensed distributor, get your cannabis sample tested at a approved laboratory, and those results are actually what will be in the competition at the state fair. There will be a gold cup for THC percentage. There will be a gold cup for CBD percentage, and there will be a gold, silver, and bronze cup for several different terpene contents. And they advertise that there will be 50 or 60 different awards given. So this is, this is a state sanctioned competition of cannabis, and hemp is cannabis. And the thing that makes me think that hemp itself is not particularly allowed is the requirement that these lab results come through a distributor, because that is the the high THC cannabis regulated market. That's an aspect of that. I've asked, I sent a message to the state fair through their Ask Me, their website system for asking them questions, and haven't gotten any response. But that's what I'm referring to, not a booth or anything like that.
I see. Well, thank you, Jack.
So I'd suggest so now that we've cleared out the how to suggest things to you outside of the meeting, I'd like to suggest, now that we're in the meeting, I'd like to suggest we talk about that state fair issue. I believe I remember from last meeting that we had agreed to talk about remediation and disposal on this agenda, but it's not on this agenda. So I'd like to suggest this is part of rulemaking. If we're going to start a committee, maybe the committee would talk about this in the meantime and then report back during next meeting. But if there's no particular committee, I'd like to talk about remediation and disposal as part of the rulemaking or plan making process, sampling protocols, and the pre-harvest 11-day window, those 3 items. Yeah, that's it. So I guess that's a total of 4 items I'm suggesting there. The 3 of them are part of the rulemaking process: remediation and disposal, sampling protocol, pre-harvest 11-day window, and a 4th one would be hemp at the California State Fair.
Thank you, Jeff.
Richard, coming back around really quickly. So Rob and Jack have volunteered to serve on a new task force committee to investigate and discuss the state plan and state regulations regarding hemp cultivation. Is there consensus from the board on that? And is that something you would like to appoint to move forward?
Yeah, I'd like to move forward on that. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Is there any comments from the board?
Thank you to Josh and Richard.
If nobody else besides Rob and I are on this committee, we don't have to worry about noticing or anything like that. But if anybody else would like to join, I mean, it's not trying to keep anybody else from joining as well and making it a slightly more complex situation.
Okay, Jack, on the agenda items,
Yes.
you had the state fair issue,
Yes.
pre-harvest 11 days,
Yes.
and the disposal issue. What was the 4th one?
Remediation and disposal.
Or was there a 4th?
There was a 4th one. Yeah, remediation and
Right.
disposal was the 3rd one. I mean, you could split those in 2, but whatever. We'll get to talk about them. 4th was sampling protocol.
Sampling.
Yeah, so Rob and Jack, historically what we've done is that staff will reach out to you after the meeting and coordinate with you on what you need from staff as you're investigating these and to have additional discussions in preparation for the next board meeting whenever you're planning on presenting. So yeah, staff will reach out to you after the meeting to start that process.
That's great. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, and so if we put those 3 rulemaking items on the next agenda, I think that would give Rob and I an opportunity as a subcommittee to come back and report on them. Or if not, we could just maybe have a general report from the rulemaking subcommittee as the item on the agenda. That's maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but our agendas are kind of small sometimes. Let's flesh them out a little bit. Let's have them all in there.
Yeah, that's something that staff would work with you on if you're planning on presenting at the next meeting, exactly how to word that and what's going to be needed. Because yeah, we do need to make sure that we're clear for the public on what's going to be getting talked about. So staff would work with you on that.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Richard. But the California State Fair, the hemp, that's a big deal. Let's not leave cannabis. Let's not leave hemp out of this opportunity to recognize farmers this year. We don't need to wait. Like, let's get that straightened out as best as within whatever capacity we can.
I agree with you.
Richard, so you also had a standing suggestion on a budget and fee task force, either combined or maintaining separate. Did the board have any further discussion on that? And is that something the board would like to move forward on? And do they have volunteers?
I suggested it. I think it's a good idea. It's a streamlining.
Well, should we put the the roll committee also with the budget committee?
I
Is
think
that
that's,
what you're saying?
yeah, I'm fine with that.
I think the idea was to merge the budget committee and the fee committee. It seems to me like the budget / fee and rule making are separate and deserve separate committees where the same people could be serving on them. But we don't need to have a nebulous committee that just does everything.
You're right.
Well, I'm open to participation on both. If we don't, if we don't have participation from others, I am absolutely willing to serve on both of those. So I agree if that's what it takes. And I think Jack's, I see him nodding his head. He's in agreement too. If it's Jack and I that head up the two committees, I think we're both willing and able to undertake that responsibility.
Okay.
Vanessa, you have your hand up?
Yes, I had my hand up, but I see that Jack and Rob would be part of the committee. I had already spoken about the fact that I think it would be good to have another person, but I know Lisa is also part of the committee, and I have not heard from Lisa whether what she wants to do.
Yes, thank you, Vanessa. Lisa Herbert here. Actually, I think our work was good and done, and I stand behind it. So I would respectfully step down off of the committee at this time. I can provide the new group with any information and how we got there if they'd like it, but I still stand by our work. So I would like to respectfully step down off the committee at this time, or the task force.
Yes, and I will be more than happy as well to give them background. I know if it is more than two, we have, maybe we can, you guys need a background and we can start with that. Locke was really helpful and instrumental last time, providing information, as well as Michelle. I know Michelle is not there anymore. So if you need some type of background information, I'll be more than happy to provide it as the process allows. Thank you.
And I guess I'd say my interests particularly lie in the rulemaking committee.
Thank you, Vanessa, for stepping down, and thank you, Lisa. So moving on, do we have any other comments?
So just to clarify, so Rob and Jack, you'll go ahead and tackle both issues then? Is that what the board's consensus is at this point?
I'd prefer to just stick, I'm sorry if any confusion, I prefer to just stick with the rulemaking committee. I think that's a big issue to tackle, and I'd like to focus on that.
Yeah, it is a big issue. Well, thank you, Jack. So it looks like the task force is still open, and I guess we'll just leave it open then. We do have a scheduled meeting for January 13th, 2022. Is that our next meeting?
So Richard, yeah, you've got a motion to hold a meeting in no more than 30 days regarding the approved cultivars. So we would work with you on scheduling that for approximately 30 days or a little further than that out. And so if Jack and Rob would be ready to present something at that time, or if Jack would like to address the item that he's the state fair issue at that time, those can be things that could be put on that agenda as well. And I know Wayne's got his hand up again if Wayne has some additional comments.
Real quick, guys, it's Rob Porcella. I just want to say that I guess I'm willing to go ahead and be the single standing member of the Budget and Deficit Committee, but with my busy schedule and without having a partner on that committee, I think what I would honestly, I just want to keep the budget and deficit at the forefront of our discussion. And if it's nothing more than just a quick briefing on where things are, I'd be happy to just present that, even if I'm not able to do a whole lot of digging. I'd still like to, again, just be presenting that as a regular item. And I'm happy to head the committee solely just simply for the purpose of, addressing our budget and deficit as we continue forward.
Thank you, Rob. So do we have any, it looks like Wayne's hand is up.
Wayne, you have the ability to unmute your, and you have 1 minute and 22 seconds to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Because I didn't see the unmute button.
Yeah,
I could hear you.
Okay, great. Well, I like the direction of where this meeting is ending up, and I want to thank Jack and Rob in particular for taking on these tasks. We're here to help any way we can as subject matter experts. I want to thank Vanessa and Lisa for your past work, and Van Butzik for your very revealing report on processes and things that could be improved. There's a lot here that needs to be improved, and I'm sorry to have to say it that way with that tone. On a lighter note, however, I love the FAIR idea. I know our members would certainly appreciate those kinds of things, and so did that. And I would like to invite CDFA Industrial Hemp Program members to participate in the World Ag Expo, which will have a hemp pavilion. And in fact, we have a 1,600 square foot outside pavilion that we would be happy to share space with and accommodate CDFA members who may want to be there, and messaging from this board in particular that might be useful for farmers who will be in attendance. So having said that, 2 agenda items that I think are related to some of our discussion today and came up last time was hemp destruction reports. I believe that somewhere in the last meeting that was brought up as something that finally perhaps CDFA could help create. We need to know that. Thank you. And thank you all for your work, and look forward to the next meeting in the next 30 days.
Thank you, Wayne. So looking at next would be the second.
Richard, you're cutting out badly. Can you repeat yourself?
Okay, the next meeting looks like would be from 30 days out. It would be what, first week or second week in November?
Be the week of November 15th.
Does any November 15th?
Seeing as how the next meeting is going to be in 30 days, I think that and Rob, tell me what you think. I mean, it's harvest season. I think we might need to present our first committee findings at the following meeting, not this upcoming meeting, because we'd have to have all our materials ready in 20 days or something. And so I think we might need a little more time than that, but I would definitely like to have the state fair on the agenda. I think we should be able to get something together on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what level of presentation, the is the expectation. I mean, if a briefing is in order, then I don't see why, we'll have the opportunity, I think, in the next month to spend some time and bounce some ideas and put some things on paper. And if it's, not a full PowerPoint presentation that's, finely tuned to what it is that we're gearing towards, I'm okay with, a rough draft type presentation, just to, again, keep the conversation going. So
okay, that sounds good. A more cursory briefing than any kind of more final findings or anything. That sounds
sure.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's harvest time and everybody's busy. So when would a good time then in November to meet, or would you rather put it out longer?
Richard, I'm thinking like a full 30 days after that, more like, so that in a prospective December meeting, if we do continue to meet every month, not an extra week or two, but a full another month to have more time to, even just for myself to have more time if I was working on it my own on those issues I had brought up, and then Rob and I are gonna, discuss those issues and possibly find other ones as well that we'd like to present.
So just very quickly on procedurally, for the next meeting, CDFA would post a notice at least 30 days out of whatever date you decide. So if you have a date the week of the 15th that you would like to meet, and that we can, we'll work internally to make sure we can accommodate, then we would do a notice that includes the proposed changes to those two sections that were referenced earlier. And then I believe that we can still make adjustments to the agenda up to 10 days before the meeting, 10 calendar days. So we would coordinate with Jack and Rob on any additional agenda items that you would be ready to present for that meeting. And we can coordinate with you on specific language and things like that ahead of the meeting. And we should be able to make changes and make amendments up to that 10-day timeframe. We just have to make sure we meet the 30-day posting window for the methodology and procedure that we were discussing earlier. So we'll go ahead and move forward with that. But if the board has a date that week that you would like to meet, and a date and time, so that way we can start the process moving forward, that would be helpful.
Thursday, the 18th, is that? It's clear on my calendar, so. November 18th.
Yeah, I'm open that time too. Any comments from the board? It's November 18th.
Yeah, that'll work for me.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Okay, I guess that could be the date, Josh, November 18th.
Lisa, did you have something to add?
No, I am available.
Yes, me too. I am available.
Thank you. So November 18th, then I guess we'll meet then.
Great. I'm hoping with more repetition in these meetings that we can also potentially shorten them up a little bit. I know in the past we've had, pushing 4+ hour meetings. I see it seems like we're wrapping up here around the 2-hour mark. And if we can kind of shoot for that, is a 2-hour time frame is with the repetition that we're, increasing to, that'd be great too.
Absolutely. Yeah, 2 hours is a good goal.
Yes, I agree. Okay, well then, the next thing is adjournment. And we're adjourned about, I guess it's around 11. Well, I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you for the new term streamline, and we're moving forward. And so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, everyone. See you in
Thanks, Richard.
November.
Thank you.